Hi Rob, it's me again. I'm going to be starting work on the car this afternoon, and I thought I'd show you some parts before I got started. So, holding this tiny little camera here, see if I can make this work. Here's everything, basically. Get it in a better light here. And in particular, um, here's your torque tube donut. This thing keeps your drive shaft from bouncing around inside the unit. These things do go bad. These things tend to get broken. And these are the things that hold the torque tube donut in place. The bearing that goes inside here. The bumpers, Gil recommended the rubber ones. They don't make the bumping noise as the thing bounces up and down a little bit. They're softer. And then of course the seal. So we'll get that all, make sure that's all nice and healthy and taken care of. It's a bit of a bear doing that one, but it's not technical. Here's the rear end, basically the rest of it. Sport springs, lowering springs with the rubber, and trailing arm bushings with the bolts and bushings for the panhard bar. So that's all that's there. That's probably going to go in first after I get the diff off. Here's the front suspension, bushings for the control arms. Gil included these spacers in here. They tend to get mangled if they're not handled properly or adjusted or kept tight in the car. So he's got those. Spring guy bushings. This goes in the end of your leaf spring. Seals and bearings, and lower ball joints. This is I need to still get back to Gil and get the upper ball joints for that, but that's the lower ones. So these are press ends. Moving on. Oh, and the boots for the steering rack. So I will take their steering rack out. These are definitely crumbling on your car. I'll definitely take the steering rack out and clean it up and relube it and replace these. I think the rest of it feels good. Your fancy Coney shocks. I've never done anything with Coneys before. I've always gone cheap. But here's the front and rear shocks. Straightforward installation. So over here we have brakes front and rear. Starting with the rotors here, Gil asked me, I guess it wasn't specified in your request, vented or not vented. I always go for vented because they handle heat better. You'll get the same pedal feel for non-vented, and it'll, like Gil said, it'll feel like nice modern brakes. Thing is, they just don't take the heat. So even though you're not racing, you may or may not worry too much about that. But if you're doing any sporty driving, if you take it out for track day or mountain driving, that will be nice to have. Brake lines, so replace all the soft, flexible brake lines. It comes with all the adapters we need for the calipers. One of the things about the vented rotors is the calipers are a little bigger, and we'll have to use wheel spacers to clear the calipers. So we got longer studs. Now, if you decide you don't want to do that, if you're happy with vented, I can swap those. I can take these back to Gil and get the vented, the non-vented type. But that's not a big problem for me. We do that all the time. For your rear brakes, we have the wheel cylinders, a little bit bigger and also nice and fresh and everything with all the parts. Brake pads for the fronts. Again, and here are the calipers. So they're more like a BMW style. If you went to a 77 E30 or E28, I think, this is what you would find on them. The spacer in here is what makes these for the vented. Without the spacer, the same caliper can be used for the non-vented rotors. But they fit right in. They're a little bigger, and the wheel spacer is necessary to clear the caliper. That's pretty much it on that. And the brake booster Nice big one. We'll get that in. That's pretty straightforward. It's a little awkward up in the working up in the nose for stuff like this. Gil didn't have the brake master cylinder yet, but he's going to be getting that soon, and we'll get the big brake cylinder. So again, they have nice fresh brakes that have, like I said, the feel of a nice modern brake system. Let's see. We do have a little more. Here's your car, by the way, and just kind of waiting for me to get in it. So I'll jack it up, take my wheels off, and take the rear off, and start cleaning it. So cleaning paint just as a general thing, just for tidiness, and also to get years of rust or whatever else off of it. Here are the other parts of the suspension. Here are the brackets and everything. Let's see, get this thing on here right. Here are the brackets and everything for the front sway bars. They just bolt right in. No big deal there. These are the brackets for the rear sway bars, and these mount on the differential, so these have to be welded on. And I have a friend who will do that. And the bushings and everything that go with that. Here are the sway bars and everything themselves. The big one is the front one, the big heavy bar, and the twisted one is in the back. And here's your lowering spring, which is, I think, very similar to what I have on my car. It doesn't have even, probably the stock springs, when we get them out, I'll show you the difference, have well over twice as much arc in them, and a little softer. And these will be stiffer and get you a little lower, which looks nice, and I don't know if you need it for performance or anything. So those are the parts. Another quick look at the car maybe while we're here. I have been watching these little stains down here are what's been leaking out of, let me get the camera straight here, what's leaking out of the gas tank. So it's kind of it smells like paint, so it's a really, it's old gas, it's definitely really old gas. So we'll get that all cleaned out, and I'll run aluminum lines instead of the plastic lines that are in there. And I will put in a shutoff valve. I'll look like I do on mine. It's a safety thing for our racing thing, or whenever you're working on the car, you can actually just turn off the gas at the back of the tank. And it's really easy. It's just a couple of off-the-shelf brass fittings. Here's the car itself, I guess. I was not expecting or planning to do any of the body work. My goal would be to get it all nice and running for you and get it out on the street for maybe 100 or 200 miles around the neighborhood on the freeways and country roads before you come get it. Before we do that, we may have to go ahead and register and license it. And I can insure it on my stuff for a little while if that is easiest. So it'll just be for a month or so. I think you've seen a lot of this. There'll be a little more work in here. Your battery down there, that's my battery in there now. We'll get you a battery. And the battery tray is rusted out, so it will not be supporting your battery, but I got another one for you, and that'll go in. The fan and everything up here, let's see, that's okay. The radiator hoses are quite old. The top one is my really old one, and the bottom one looks good, but I think we should replace those for sure. And the other hoses are pretty generic, and I'll just run fresh hoses for those. Any of that old plastic stuff like that, that is likely to blow up on you. We'll take care of. Let's see, everything else in here looks pretty tidy. You can see on the doors and stuff, it's got a lot of sun damage, and I'll let you guys figure out what you want to do with that. You can get seat covers and all kinds of stuff from Gil and put those in, or you may want to go with something completely different. I think that's about it. I always have trouble with this tiny little camera in my hand here. But I will be jacking it up here in a minute, and I'll maybe add to some video later when I get this stuff off. And I expect it'll only take me a couple of weeks to do all this. The work itself not too bad, a day or so for each part, each section of the car. And then, but add a little more to that because I'll be painting it and it takes a bit of more extra time to clean and dry and paint everything here in the winter to get the paint to dry. And again, I'm just painting it just for tidiness, and if problems show up in the future, you'll be able to see if the dirt or the oil is new versus old. And it's just a general, it just looks better as well. So I know I'll have this, I should have this all done before you, within a week or two into January. And you'll have the car probably home, probably sooner than I think sooner than you expected, if you want to drive it through the mountains in the winter. So that's it for now. And I need to get back to work on my stuff here as well. I think your engine's going to be okay. So you don't have to worry about any of this stuff here like this. Hey, I thought I'd just finish up showing you what I got done here. Here you go. So it's out. It came out no problem. No muss, no fuss. No undue corrosion. I made things impossible. You can see everything's out. Yeah, not very exciting, but here you go. So I'm cleaning it up. I power washed a couple times, and I'll get in there with some other stuff. Make it good enough to take paint. And again, the paint's just to make it look nice and corrosion issues and things like that. I guess you're up north, you'll have more of that than us. So it'll take another afternoon to kind of clean that up and get it painted. Meanwhile, I'll take the trailing arms, or these guys over here, if you can see them. Let's see. And push out the bushings and get those all ready to go back in. And get the here's the torque tube. The torque tube done, it is beat up. It's bad, so definitely we have to replace that. And I'll just clean all that up and make sure it's all nice and everything is in there. And I'll take the cover off. Not that I can do anything in there, but it's nice to have a look just to make sure everything's good before you put much more work into it. And I got gaskets and everything for that. So kind of that's it for today. It's gotten too cold and too dark to keep going, and I'll get on this thing tomorrow afternoon. I have some stuff in Roseville tomorrow,